leadership has gotten a lot tougher. I mean, pick a number, 3x, 5x, 10x, right? But like there's an X there. And I think partly it's just sort of the endless disruption, right? And it just seems like the pace of disruption, just when you think you got things on track, like, there's a 18 wheeler that comes out of your side view and like, supply chain or, whatever, but it's just sort of that constant, like, oh no, like these once in a lifetime events seem to be happening every 2 years now. Right. Right. So you take that, but also just it is remarkable for people like me who grew up like in the sort of Gordon Gecko, like business is bad. And, it's all just like, serving investors and all that. You think about the evolution. I mean, all the trust surveys show now that like business is at the top of the trust index, right? Like you never would have expected that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
30 years ago. And in many ways, like people are now looking to companies to solve all society problems, right? All the problems seem to be rolling past the doors of government agencies to business. Okay, you guys solve this. And partly because they can, right? And our political world is so divided, right? So people are looking to business to address all these broader societal problems. And then on top of that, like with the pandemic, you add in, it's like, okay, we got to take care of our employees. So we have to take care about their safety, got that, get the order equipment. But it's like, oh, we also have to take care of your mental health now too. And because everybody is, the pandemic was kind of looking in the mirror and saying, what's the meaning of life? Right. Companies also then had to provide more sense of purpose, right. And mission and all that so that there was that emotion. It's like, wow, this keeps getting harder. And so to me, it's just like all these additional layers, and many of them do manifest as these paradoxes, right? These balancing acts. So, you're a manager, you're a leader, you've got employees going through a lot, because certainly during the pandemic, right? Everybody, family members, all that other stuff, like you're supposed to be compassionate, but at what point, like, where does that end? And where does that end? When does it just turn into therapy? And like, they got to do their job, right? So like, balancing compassion, but also holding people accountable for performance. I feel like people are always trying to figure that out, especially with, quiet quitting. We went through that. And as companies are being pulled off the fence to take stands on broader societal issues, like that's a whole layer of complexity, right? And sometimes even just staying on the fence is taking a stand.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you sort of morph into, okay, companies are supposed to be inclusive, right? But you're supposed to stand for something. So how do you square those? Right. Because if everybody is supposed to have a sense of belonging at the company, and yet you're supposed to stand for something, like what if the people on your team disagree? Like there's just all these new nuanced problems for which there is no obvious answer. And so that's why I think leadership has gotten so much harder. And I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
Well, every interview I do, I ask the person, what is the biggest challenge you faced at your current company? What did you do to overcome it? I ask everyone the same question. And every single person so far, it has been a story during the last 4 years. Even people with 12-year-old companies, 15, been part of like it's something related to the last 4 years. And almost all of them bring up a actual business problem, supply chain, physical office business that gets shut down, like all things that are related to the business. Everything you just said is in addition, it's like in addition to that, the last 4 years has probably been the most complicated as it relates to the people. And one of the CEOs I spoke with, he said, the entire time I was so worried about all the things I had to worry for my team and their safety and their jobs and their this. But at the same time, the company was literally collapsing. And the team didn't give me any credit for the fact that I'm holding up the company over here while taking care of them over here. I've heard that same thing now. And that probably is a unique moment of how many crazy things have happened to businesses while at the same thing at time that they're having to deal with the people. That I think it is. I haven't been operating for 40 years, so it's hard for me to go back far enough to say, is it the worst? But at least in my career, I don't know how could you have more complexity at one time? I don't know.
Yeah. And then we go back to like who would want these jobs, right? Because they have gotten so much harder.
Yeah.
And every day is this sort of, I feel like part of leadership it's like every day there's a new wheelbarrow of Rubik's cubes you've never seen before that are like dumped at your desk, right? And it's like, okay, you try and solve it, and then tomorrow there's going to be a new wheelbarrow of Rubik's cubes you've never seen before. And you that's why it's like, well, why do people do this? Why do and part is like you've got to have a certain amount of stamina and energy, and you got to see all those Rubik's cubes as kind of interesting and exciting and challenging and opportunities. Because if it was like, please don't give me another like Rubik's cube, like you're in the wrong job, right?